Let's start with the basics. The ATP rankings are the system used to determine entry and seedings for tournaments on the men's professional tour. Here's how it works. Players accumulate ranking points based on their performance in tournaments. These points are added to a player's total and count for 52 weeks, or 1 full year. Now after 52 weeks, those points expire. Only a player's best results from specific tournaments count toward their total, meaning you don't count every match you've ever played. For most players, the breakdown includes the 4 slams, 8 Masters 1000 events, and the best results from all other ATP 500, 250, Challenger, and Futures. This means the ranking total is not a pure tally of form. It's a strategic combination of selective results. But before we dig a little deeper, you might as well hit that subscribe button, like the video, for all future content. Alright, let's get into it. Now, many fans assume the ranking reflects who is truly the best tennis player at a given moment. But in reality, the system is far from a perfect reflection of ability. Now, because ATP rankings use a 52-week rolling window, players must defend points they earned the year before, even if they played better this year. For example, if a player won a big tournament 52 weeks ago but lost earlier this year, they'll lose more points than someone who never went deep at that event in the first place. That means you can play better this year, but slide down the rankings anyway. Another problem is the system rewards playing a lot, not necessarily playing well. Because every tournament's points stay in your tally for an entire year, players often make scheduling decisions based not on rest or form, but ranking defense. It's not just a theory, even top pros complain about it. Casper Ruud, for example, a 2-time French Open finalist, openly criticized the system, literally calling it a rat race. He said a lot of players feel forced to compete in mandatory events, even while injured, because skipping them can mean losing points and even losing part of their year-end bonus. So instead of resting after an injury, some players feel like they have to play through pain, not because it's smart, but because the system punishes absence. Another issue is protected rankings, which is seen as a safety net for players who have been injured long-term. Shout out Holger Rune, but it isn't the greatest thing many casual fans believe it is. Here's the catch with protected rankings. Protected rankings don't preserve your actual points while you're out. They only preserve tournament access. A returning star can enter events based on their old ranking, but they still earn their actual current ranking based on new results. Which means essentially, an injured player's ranking still collapses while they're out, even if the ATP gives them a chance to enter tournaments when they return. The system acknowledges injuries, but only barely, and only in entry terms, not in real performance. Another problem we come across when looking at the ATP rankings is there is quite a massive surface bias and tournament weighting with those surfaces. So, as most of you are aware, tennis is played on clay, grass, and hard courts, and players often specialize on one surface over the others. Yet the ATP ranking doesn't adjust for surface proficiency. It treats results across surfaces as if they were directly comparable. Think about it. A player might dominate clay but struggle on hard courts, i.e. Sebastian Baez. Yet because a massive amount of tournaments are on clay, that surface's results dominate the ranking picture, which distorts the narrative of who's actually the best, especially when surface preference is such a huge factor. And if grass is your best surface, well, good luck, you're looking at a handful of tournaments each year. You could argue that an objective ranking should balance surfaces, but ATP points don't do that. Another massive flaw of the system is how points are distributed. A Grand Slam win gives you 2,000 points, and losing in the early rounds still gives points just for showing up. This creates massive gaps that don't always match the actual gap in ability between players. The difference between first and second place points at a slam can be bigger than the difference between a slam champion and someone ranked well outside the top 10. That means two players could be statistically close in ability, but worlds apart in ranking points simply because of one tournament structure. In other words, the rankings can exaggerate differences and minimize consistency. So all of this leads to bizarre and counterintuitive situations. A player can fall in the rankings despite playing better. A player can stay high without deep runs if they made big results the previous year. And players can be ranked ahead of someone who just beat them head-to-head because of past performances. It's not so much a ranking system as it is a tennis memory ledger. So what ATP rankings actually are is a mechanism for tournament entry and seedings, a reflection of past performance stretched over a long period. And what they're not is a pure indicator of current ability, a meritocracy of performance, or a true reflection of who the best players are right now. Now, the ranking system wasn't designed to lie. It was designed to produce a structured, somewhat fair way to seed tournaments and compare players across a year. But the way it's constructed, 52-week rolling totals, mandatory events, protected entries that don't protect actual points, and giant point swings means the numbers don't always match the reality. If we want a system that accurately reflects how good players are right now, then what we have today needs serious reform. But what do you think? As always, let us know in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button, like the video for more content in the future. We'll see you next time.